Alrighty, I was trying to dial in, but it's asking me for all these passcodes that I can't find at the moment. I just worry that sometimes my internet kind of comes and goes, so I was gonna dial in to at least listen, but that's okay. I'll figure it out throughout the meeting.
I thought the passcode is on the agenda.
No, it was asking me for something else because I was
Something
doing
else.
dial-in,
Okay,
the
okay.
dial-in part of it, but it's okay. We can call the meeting to order and Dr. Joyner, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. You're working right now. Okay, and the first item, I am going to move that we go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 12006B and 1201B4 and 10 concerning strategy and negotiation with respect to pending claims and discussion, which would result in the disclosure of attorney-client privilege communications regarding New Haven Federation of Teachers versus New Haven Board of Education, case 01-22-004-7375. Is there a second?
Second.
Point of order, Madam President.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes, Madam President, somewhere else on the agenda, you mentioned that we may be going into executive session at item number under 5, item number 3.
Yes, that depends on where the conversation leads us at the time of the discussion of that item.
Okay, so we may have 2 separate executive sessions. Is that what you're saying?
It's possible, yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam President.
Sure. It's been properly seconded. Seeing no further discussion, we'll vote to go into executive session. Mr. Wilcox,
Attorney Alexiadis has his hand up.
was that a yes, Mr. Wilcox?
Attorney Alexiadis has his hand up, so he might have something to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Attorney Alexiadis. I didn't see your hand.
Yes, I never like to interrupt a vote, so I'm glad Mr. Wilcox pointed that out before the actual votes were cast. I did not hear in the motion, and maybe I just missed it, whether you included the invitees, which I think ought to be Attorney Sierra Milan, myself, and Dr. Tracy, in addition to the board members. I'm not sure if there's anyone else who ought to be there as well, but those are the 3.
Yes, you're right.
3 minimum additional people.
Those are the 3 attendees. I did not mention them. So it would be Attorney Sierra Milan, Attorney Alexiadis, and Dr. Tracy.
Another point of order, the HR director is not included in this discussion.
Attorney Alexiadis.
I probably should be, but I defer to the board and to the administration on that. But I do think that's a fine. It does sound like a fine idea.
Okay, then we'll. Legend.
Dr. Tracy, hands up.
Dr. Tracy?
Yeah, Ms. Flagler should be.
Yep, I just added her to the list. Thank you. Just make sure that she gets the executive session link, because I don't believe she was on it initially. All right, is that still a second, Dr. Joyner? Adding?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton.
Yes.
The students are not in. Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. And so we'll see you on the other side of the executive session. Thank you. We're waiting on Dr. Benitez, right, and Dr. Yarborough. Okay, so we are out of executive session, back in regular session. There was no action to be taken at this time, and there were no votes in executive session, and so we'll move on to public participation. Dr. Joyner and Dr. White.
If someone from the public wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Madam President, I have recognized one hand. I don't know if someone else would like to take over
The timer?
the timekeeping.
Dr. Joyner's here. I can take over the,
I volunteered Dr. Yarborough. All in favor?
yeah.
I did see Mr. Wilcox raise a hand.
Mr. Wilcox, will you take the time?
I'm happy
or-
to do it. I'm ready.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Ashley Lugo. Ashley Lugo.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Ashley Lugo. I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be able to speak about this. My daughter is Layla Rivera Lugo. She's a third grader at Conti West Hills Magnet School. About a week and a half ago, I tried to get her on the bus. We do live in Hamden, have been there for about a year and a half. She's been going to Conti since kindergarten. We have lived in New Haven, you know, when she did the lottery. I did update the information and the address, but I guess it was not updated in the system, and I was not aware of that. I've been bringing her to and from school since kindergarten, so I did not know. So when I did ask for the bus information, they told me to send her info over and 2 recent bills with my address. I did do that. Within 10 minutes, they called me and said that she was withdrawn from school. It was her last day of school there because she was not a resident of New Haven. I did not realize that Conti is no longer an interstate magnet school. I was never aware of that. I was not trying to abuse the system. You know, I did everything on my end. I was just trying to make my life a little bit easier and put her on the bus because I'm a single mom, but it ended up causing more chaos. And now I would like for her to at least finish off the year. There's only 2 more months left of school. It's going to really affect her if she has to start a new school within 2 months. You know, she has the testing coming up at the end, in April, I believe, for third graders. And I know it's not going to do her any well if she just has to go to a new school. So all I'm asking is for her to finish off the year. That's it. I know she can't go to the school there next year, which is fine. And I don't even care about her taking the bus anymore. I can still take her. All I want is for her to finish off the year.
Thank you. Madam President, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Dr. White and Mr. Wilcox. We'll move on to the action items, the first being the personnel report.
Good evening, again, board and members of the community who may be watching. I have very few items this time on my personnel report. We have 2 teacher appointments, 1 paraprofessional appointment, and a promotional appointment to an in-school suspension and an instructional staff. I ask that the board please accept the personnel report. Very
So
short.
moved.
There's a second,
Second.
any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go on the action items of the personnel report. Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
yes,
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so that item passes. Next item is the 23-24 proposed general fund budget.
Someone gonna move the item? Is that what we're supposed to do, Madam President?
I thought it was a
Yeah,
presentation.
So,
They were gonna present it. Go ahead, Dr. Tracy.
so we presented this budget before and at the last meeting. I think people were not ready to take a vote on it, but tonight was to take a vote on what we had presented. Are there any other questions about the budget?
Were there any changes to the budget?
No.
Okay.
The only difference this time, we're gonna add the, as an addendum or to that is the gap analysis that was done, which we have in your packet and we have posted on our site also.
I do have a question, but I'll wait till it's moved, Madam President.
Okay. Dr. Joyner?
I just want to quickly commend Linda Hanna. Linda has battled through a lot of personal challenges and she still does excellent work. And Linda, we love you for that. And I really commend you for the good work you've done, particularly having to take over a situation that was crumbling. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Golden, did you have your hand up again, or are you still waiting until after it's moved?
I'm just waiting for it to be moved before I ask a question.
Is there a motion, Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, I move that we approve the proposed general fund budget request.
Second,
Who seconded?
Dr. Yarborough, he's on the finance committee, so.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? And Mr. Golden?
I just have one question and one comment. The deputy purchasing agent, BOE, one of the new proposed positions. Do we have a purchasing agent already?
Nope.
So how do we have a deputy if we don't have a purchasing agent? I don't understand that.
We have I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
In the past, we had a deputy purchasing agent that worked in conjunction with the purchasing agent at the city. And because of the volume of work we had, we had one person that was here. That position has been vacant for a very, very long time. So what's happening now with all the policies that we're updating and correcting, and the additional work that's going to be involved, we're recommending that we have someone dedicated here to the Board of Education. So we can't hire a purchasing agent per se, so this would be like a deputy purchasing agent.
We can't hire a purchasing agent because of some sort of union rules or something?
No, the purchasing agent usually works for this, oh my gosh. I'm sorry. The purchasing agent normally works for the city of New Haven. So what's happening is that we can hire under, but we can't hire a direct purchasing agent ourselves. But we
I don't
can
really,
have that would report to the city, but they would be, designated to the Board of Education.
but they will report to the city. It'd be supervised by the city and managed by the
So it would be
city.
Supervised by us, they would be housed by us, but it would be like an extension where we would be working, that person would be working, moving all of the, stuff that goes through us, like those agreements that we have and checking to make sure that, all of our ducks are in a row, so to speak.
Who would evaluate that person?
I'm sorry,
Who evaluates?
Who would evaluate that person?
The CFO.
probably the CFO.
Or you, meaning you, not, not,
Right.
it has to be better than probably, right? It has to
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
where does this person fit in the flow chart?
And I'm thinking, I'm not sure, Mr. Goldson, but I'm thinking that this person would be part of the local 3144 because the person was in the past a union person. And in the 3144, currently there is no mechanism for evaluation, but I would assume that the person would report to me. So they would get their, I would be responsible for the work that person would be doing.
Can we be clear on that by the time we get to the Board of Alders in case they start asking the question?
Sure.
We should be clear that this is our employee and how that person is hired, managed, and let go if that has to happen is on our side and not on the city side. I just want to be clear about that.
I'm working with Mike Gormany, and I'll continue to get the answers that you're asking.
Okay, and my comment is, as I said it last time, I really don't support this labor attorney position. We keep saying that we get new positions that are going to save us money, and they never do. It didn't happen with legal. As a matter of fact, it increased our legal costs, both with outside attorneys and with that our attorney who was managed by the city. But I'm not going to oppose this budget based on those issues. So I support the budget. I'm just not real convinced that that's going to save us any money. And I guess time will tell. And something that some other board members are going to have to deal with in the future.
Thing too, I just want to mention that, and I probably should raise my hand. I just want to mention too, that this was an odd year because we had so many contracts that are all ending at the same time. And I think that really raised our legal costs. I don't see that happening for another, 3 to 5 years. But so we really don't know if we'll be saving or anything, but hopefully we will. We just had a lot going through, a lot of litigation.
I'm sorry, go ahead, were you finished?
An unusual year for grievances, a lot of grievances.
I understand. Listen, I'm not opposed to a labor attorneys per se. I'm just opposed to this idea that a labor attorney is going to save us money, and not. They never. Whenever we had a new position, it never saves us money. It was the same thing when I was at Board of Alders, and they kept saying hire this position is going to save us money. It never did. And it's the same thing here at the school board. But I want to commend you, Ms. Hannes. You've done, as I said the last meeting, bang up job, and not just putting the budget together, but explaining it to us and making it understandable. I appreciate you for that. Thank you. And I support this budget as it is.
Have a wonderful team.
Dr. Jordan?
I want to support the budget. But I want to support Mr. Golson's comment regarding the deputy position. It should be clear in the job description and any other textual evidence around it that the person is housed by us, paid by us. And I fail to understand how you can really improve performance without being able to evaluate the person. I think we should evaluate every single staff member. And I guess that's a challenge for the whoever becomes a superintendent. But evaluation is not necessarily bad, but it can also be good. And we need to be able to evaluate all our staff if we're going to have a highly functional organization. And I'm hoping, Ms. Hannah, that the job description makes it clear that the person reports to the board, and there's a Board of Ed employee working with the city. In fact, I almost wish we could change the name so that it wouldn't say deputy, because it looks like that person is reporting to the purchasing person on the other side. And I don't, is there any barrier to changing it to something else?
You're muted.
The,
Yep.
am I here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, we're still in the early stages, so, I'll, take your recommendations and see maybe if something else can be done and we could change the job description so that the person works strictly in the Board of Ed. So we can take a look at it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Horner. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, just wanted to say thank you for this. I've had the pleasure of seeing this budget presentation come along and through the Finance and Operations Committee and your presentations here. I think it's a reflection of the need, particularly with the addendum of the backup information for the staffing guidelines, which shows the extent of the need. And this is something we've requested be part of a future board meeting, to have a presentation for that great group that came together, led by Assistant Superintendent Red Hannons, and pulling in staff, teachers, union members, union leadership from various unions, and really coming together to just show the amount of need that's here, that our students deserve in terms of number of teachers and librarians and counselors and psychologists and restorative justice folks, et cetera, is just showing that, there is a lot of need here. So this is not, we know it's a big lift for the city to increase the funds this much, but that's the needs that are there. And there's plenty of need beyond that, which is something that the state's going to need to take care of, because these are all citizens of the state as well. And we're one of the richest states in the country with a multi-billion-dollar budget surplus. It's time to invest in equitable funding for schools. So thank you for this budget presentation.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the proposed general funds budget. Dr. Joyner? Dr. Joyner?
Yes, I muted myself. Yes.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Dr. Yarber?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so that item passes. The next item is the discussion of BOE policies and procedures regarding mid-year residency determinations. Dr. Joyner?
Madam Chair, I believe that as an education system, we should have the same moral principle that medicine has: first, do no harm. And having run at least two schools, I've had the occasion to have kids that would move in the middle of the year. And at that time, I had the discretion as a principal to make a decision. And in every single case, if the parent wanted the kid to remain in the school and could provide transportation, I allowed the child to stay in the school. Because anybody that ever attended Jack Robinson Hill House, people don't, contrary to popular opinion, kids didn't want to leave that school. They were trying to get into it. And I think that if we have cases where children have a change of address in the middle of the year, we should give them the option to stay. But I think we should do that now with any child meeting that particular situation. But I also think that we should move this to governance and look at trends and practices across the state and across the country, and come up with policy revisions as necessary so that we protect the psycho-emotional welfare of the student and in many cases, the family as a whole. I've had kids that were transferred in fleeing domestic abuse. And of course, you have to take them. If they come in May, you got to take them. And so there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. And I think we should always make the decision based on the best interest of the child. And in any situation where a child is disrupted by having to move, if we can keep that child in the school, if the parent desires that, we should do that. Because that's the business we're in. We're in the business for the welfare and protection of our children.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Mr. Wilcox and then Mr. Goldson.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So what I think is that the policy in question here, policy 5188, this is a relatively new policy. The board passed this just a year and a half ago. I think it was July 2021. So now staff are, rightly so, going through and trying to enforce the board policies, which is their job. But I think what we need in this situation here is the policy does allow for some discretion. It limits it limits it to the 4th marking period, and it limits it to certain grades from my reading of it. I think what we need is just to be able to say that from now to the end of this school year, for people that are going to be affected by this policy, if they move out of district, if they can provide transportation, they can remain in the schools. And I request that governance committee takes this up and then just doubles checks so that we can put some tweaks in this policy so that moving forward, we have some things that make sense. I think we all agree that, late in a school year, it can be really disruptive for families and children, et cetera. So, and it's unclear to me if there's any financial implications and things like that. So I think what we need to do is relax the requirement for kids to leave the district, provided that not that we provide transportation. We can't provide transportation necessarily to every place if there's not already transportation routes in place for that, but that we relax this till the end of the year so that it gives chance for staff and the governance committee to tweak this and bring it back to us with any necessary changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Goldson and then Attorney Alexiadis.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think there are some tweaks that we can make to this policy. There's also some tweaks that we can make to how we enforce the policy. I think we've already not followed the policy because we were supposed to offer some parents the ability to be able to have a hearing. It wasn't clear in the documentation that was given to the parent that we saw it, that was entirely explained well. Secondly, the students, according to our own policy, students are supposed to be able to are allowed to remain in the school while the hearing process is happening. And that has not happened in the case that we know of. The young lady that spoke up today, and probably in other cases, the student was immediately withdrawn from school. Student hasn't been in school for, I don't know, a week and a half, where they should still be in school while the hearing is going on. Right. That's according to our policies and state law. So I think we have to not only just tweak this a little, but also make sure that staff is clear on how they enforce this policy when it's time to do that. That's all well and good sending this to the committee to make the tweaks, but we also have some cases out there right now that are real world cases. So we have to give some specific guidance to our staff. I don't know if we have to do that as a motion. They may feel more comfortable with that because it's a policy. They want to make sure we're specifically laying out for them what they can and can't do. But if we're not going to do a motion, we should be very clear in this meeting that any students who are affected by this at this time of the year should be able to should be immediately returned to class and should be allowed to continue in that classroom until the end of the year or until they have an official year.
Thank you, Mr. Golson. Attorney Alexiadis? You're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Once again, my lips are moving, but nothing's coming out. So I would, a couple of things. One, I would caution that if we're going to talk about any individual cases, we ought to do that in executive session, not on the public record.
We're not.
I have seen the standard form letter that gets sent out in situations like this, and it includes the required statutory notice with regard to hearing rights. So it is, based on what I've seen, our staff complies with the policy and with the requirements of that policy. I would, and I think that well, I just said that. I think that staff is complying with the policy, which does not provide for the way the policy is written, does not provide the exception that has been discussed about letting kids stay through the end of the year, except in limited circumstances in 8th grade and in 12th grade during the final marking period. So I would also suggest that if you're going to make a change or suspend that policy, that you consider the impact on the school system, whether it's financial or number of student impact. I would suggest that the board needs to know how many students may be impacted by this, both in and out from suburban districts unenrolling our kids and vice versa. And I think that I would also highly recommend that you hear from staff on that impact and on the process in general. Although with regard to any particular instance, I believe that at least in the first instance, that ought to be considered an executive session to protect student privacy. Thank you.
Dr. Benitez and then Mr. Golson.
So I'm reading here, and I see why we need to look into it, because it does say that we have to provide a hearing. It's not clear saying that this child has to remain in school or not. Our practice right now is that the child is removed immediately, which means the child then stays out of school. And I'm concerned about that because we also have another policy that addresses this, that is for homeless children. And as you all know, some homeless children come to us with one parent or one adult. And if that adult somehow disappears, it becomes an issue. So I see why we need to look into this. I would like the support of the people in the office that makes this decision. And also I need the support of Attorney Alexiadis to make sure that we make the right, because this is something that it's beyond just, I have a problem with leaving kids outside of school before we have a final decision. That's my problem. So I need support.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Mr. Golson and then Dr. Tracy.
President, Section I of this policy states that a local board of education, the decision may be appealed to the state board and that the student may continue in local schools pending a hearing before the State Board of Education. So it's clear that the student should be in the state law mirrors our policy. Also, it would have been very easy. I'm looking at the form letter that they sent to parents when they withdraw their kids. And it would be very easy to add a line in there to say that your student, if you decide on a hearing, your student can remain in the local school system until the hearing process is over. Now we see that there's a process that allows for a local hearing by our Board of Education, and then a state hearing by the State Board of Education, which has up to 90 days to make their decision. Now, any lawyer, doesn't even have to be a smart lawyer, could carry this process through the end of the school year very easily. That's going to then cost us money to fight that hearing, which means we have to hire a lawyer to fight it. And I don't know what the benefits are for us hiring a lawyer to keep a kid out of school who's already in school until the process is over, or just to say, oops, we both made mistakes. Parent thought that it was a magnet school and that their student was fine, and voluntarily called the school and said, and I'm not talking about any specific parent, but parents have called the school and said, I need busing, for my magnet school student. And then we found out that they were in the school, they weren't living in town anymore, and it's not a magnet school. Secondly, we haven't followed our own policy. The parents have requested hearings. We're supposed to grant a hearing within 10 days. We have not done that. And while the parent is waiting for a hearing, the student is supposed to remain in school. So we denied students almost 2 weeks now of schooling. We have now put ourselves in jeopardy of being sued for not providing what we statutorily are supposed to provide, not just with
I would
our
caution
own.
Mr. Goltz not to discuss individual cases.
I'm not discussing an individual case. I'm not discussing. I
Mr.
haven't
Goltz,
named
you
any
just said a
names.
child's been out of school for 2 weeks. It sounds like you're talking about an individual.
I
case.
said children have been out of school for nearly 2 weeks. I've heard from talking to administrators that this has happened to several children, that this is not just one child, but several children. So my concern is that we are now setting ourselves up for lawsuits threatening children's lack of education, or threatening to sue us because we haven't provided the statutory education that we're supposed to provide students. So I am all for tweaking the system, but we have problems right in front of us. One of the parents even spoke tonight about the problem. And I think it's cheaper and easier for us to say, let's let them finish out the year, as opposed to us trying to lower the hammer and having all these parents now coming to us and saying, you haven't followed through in your own procedures. I don't know why we haven't called for a hearing within 10 days when parents have asked for that. I don't know why that didn't happen. I mean, we all got copies of an email from a parent that said that they wanted a hearing, and that hearing hasn't happened. Instead, we are now here at the Board of Education, got to give it a de facto type hearing. It's not, and this is certainly not a hearing as defined by the state. So I understand what the lawyers are saying, and I understand what the staff are saying. I get it, but you know what? My concern is not about how many dollars and cents this costs us at the end of the day. It's about the psyche of those students, those third graders and fourth graders who have to leave their classes, leave their friends, leave their teachers, and start a new school for a month and a half, 2 months. So let's be a little humane in the way we deal with this, and say we'll make sure that this problem doesn't prop up again next year. But this year, this is what we're going to do. And what we're going to do is allow those students to remain until the end of the year. I hope that that's the decision that we come down on. I hope we don't spend 2 hours trying to figure out how to get there, because at the end of the day, this is going to cost us a lot of money, and it's going to cost a lot of kids psychologically. They have to. Kids bounce back. They do, But, what parent wants to see their kids crying for the next couple of weeks because they were pulled out of a school for no fault of their own and made to go somewhere else? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Dr. Joyner and then Dr. Tracy.
Madam Chair, I'm in 100% agreement with Mr. Golson on this one. And what I would suggest is that we do exactly what he recommended, that as a board, we allow those students that are in that predicament now to remain in the district if they so desire, that depending on what school they're in, they may have to supply their own transportation. And I think that we should have further discussion on this matter in governance and in collaboration with the administration. I don't think we should spend any more time talking about this because we don't have enough time to resolve it. And the next step would be to take it to governance and have Dr. Tracy meet with her staff and in collaboration with governance, create a win-win solution in favor of the child.
I'm in agreement, but was that a motion or is that just?
If Mr. Golson, Madam Chair, do I still have the floor?
Yes.
Thank you. If Mr. Golson is willing to make the motion, I will second it, and then the board can decide what they want to do with it.
I am more than happy to make that motion, Madam
It's
President.
not fair not to hear from the staff.
Madam Chair, I have recommended that we defer this conversation with the staff through the governance committee.
I
And
agree, Madam President.
all right, so Mr. Golson, I'm
Do I have
going
the floor to make the motion, Madam President?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to ditto what Dr. Joyner said earlier, and that is that we allow any student in the system, currently in the system, to continue to remain in the system, irregardless of their residency until the end of this school year. And during the rest of this year, that we defer to the governance committee to tweak the policies and the processes for following those policies.
second the motion.
Dr. Joyner, any discussion? And Dr. Tracy and Ms. Bonanno have hands up.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Go ahead, Doc.
I think the discussion has to take place among board members.
Madam President, I agree with that point of order.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilcox?
I'm perfectly happy giving the courtesy to staff members if there's something that they need to say right now that would pertain to whether or not how I vote on this motion, which I'm in support of right now. But I don't want to start the precedent of telling staff members. I don't want to shut them up. So
Madam
I
Chair.
would love to hear from them, and I request that we can.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Dr. Joyner?
As much as I love our staff, we are the body that's legally mandated to make motions, pass motions, and so on and so forth. And any kind of discussion or any kind of information that we might have needed could have been given to us prior to this. But there's certainly plenty of time after this for staff to weigh in, to provide their point of view, and for us to come together in a collaborative way and create a policy so that this won't have to happen again. And I think that we're out of order when we allow any person that's not a board member to raise questions about a motion. I think that's really not parliamentary procedure. And I'm respectfully requesting that we vote yes or no. And then, of course, there's plenty of room left for staff input and for staff to come and present to the board at later meetings regarding what they feel are the correct administrative procedures for that. We are mandated to create policy. The staff is mandated to create administrative procedures consistent with that policy. And so they have plenty of latitude there. And I'm respectfully requesting that we vote on this and have that opportunity for them at another time when they can have plenty of time to discuss the matter, do the research, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so I agree I agree, Dr. Joyner. However, we want them to just give us information during the discussion before we vote, just to see if.
Madam President, point of order, we could do that, but we could also make a motion to move to call the vote. And I think I'm at that point now. I think Dr. Joyner is at that point. If the motion fails, then you can call on the staff to speak. But at this point, I'm gonna move that we call the vote, Madam President.
Is there a
Madam
second?
President, I have a question about the motion.
Go ahead, Attorney Alexiadis.
What's the effective date and is it retroactive?
I didn't hear what he said.
He said,
What's
what
the
is the
The question is, what's the
effective
date
date?
of the motion?
The effective date of the motion is today, obviously. Is it retroactive? I would say so, yes.
It's inherent in the motion that any child in that predicament now be allowed to stay in the school.
As long as they have not withdrawn.
Right.
But they would have been withdrawn from the system, so.
No, the system withdrew them. They did not voluntarily withdraw. And some of them have the ability to be able to ask for a hearing, which they haven't gotten yet. So they're not officially withdrawn until they go through that hearing process. So if a student hasn't, I would say the definition is if a student hasn't already enrolled in another school, then they should be allowed to continue in our school system.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yeah, I just was trying to get some clarification because, I mean, if it could be retroactive to the beginning of the year.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
So I'm just trying to determine what the, I think there's a lot of implications to this, but it probably would be prudent to have some sort of date. I mean, the policy we passed did talk about around the fourth marking period, and we're close to that. So, I mean.
Guys, point of order. Mr. Golson just said, he called a question. We have to deal with that before we have further discussion.
I think I also answered the question regarding the date. If they haven't already enrolled in another school, then they're eligible to remain in our system. I think that's fairly simple. I mean, some kids have already enrolled in other school systems because they didn't know what their rights were. Some haven't. Those that haven't are the lucky ones.
Okay, so let's deal with the call to question, which was properly seconded. It's not debatable. We need, because there are 6 of us, we need 4 out of the 6 to be yes votes. So we'll vote on that. Mr. Wilcox?
No.
What's happening? No.
Point of order, where are we? There was a second. There was a
There-
second motion. Has that been seconded?
Yes, it was seconded by Dr. Joyner. And so we're voting on the calling the question so that we go straight to the vote or we listen to more conversation. And we need 4 out of the 6 to be yeses in order for that to happen. Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
No.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
and the mayor's gone, so it would be me. I'm gonna say no, just because I want to hear from the staff. So that motion fails. So we'll move back to the vote allowing the students to currently stay in the system and remain and refer the item to governance. And so we're on the discussion with that. Ms. Mason, I think she might have a question.
Yes, I have I don't know.
You've got some feedback of some sort. I'll come back to you.
Ms. Mason, you have 2 devices on. If you can log off one of them, that will help. Or if you could put your question in the chat to the board, we can help answer it.
Dr. Tracy? Ms. Bonanno put her hand down.
Thank you, Madam President, for this opportunity. I'm going to defer to my two staff members, Marquel and Michelle Bonanno, and at some point, Ms. Jackson may want to join in, because there are implications to this. So let me have Michelle Bonanno speak first, and then Mr. Middleton.
Sure. Before we start, I just want to make sure that we're not getting into particulars of any one
No, just general,
policy. Okay.
yes.
So I'm going to defer to my colleague, Mr. Middleton, but what I do want to say for the record is that the decision made and voted on prior to staff being able to talk has implications for the district other than one specific situation or scenario. This is a pervasive problem in the New Haven Public Schools in terms of families not residing in the district and staying for quite some time. And so, you know, when we are doing our work, it's really important for us that we do abide by the board's policy. We have worked with attorneys on this in the past, and certainly we are open for feedback or if there are changes to the policy to changing our process. But it's really important for me to state for the record that we have followed through on the policy that exists that was passed by the board 1.5 years ago, as Mr. Wilcox has stated. So I will defer to Marquel because he can talk a little bit more specifically about the steps that we take, but it's important for us to say that here tonight.
Good evening, everyone. So when an issue of residency comes about, so particularly at non-interdistrict magnet schools, students must be living in New Haven. So we did have that policy put in place. We have a huge district. So yes, there are plenty of kids who we know probably are not residing in New Haven and should be removed from the schools, but we can't catch them all. So it's never our desire or work to target anyone. But when a suspicion arises, usually from the school, and they will say, we believe that this student may be residing outside of the district, we ask them to do their due diligence, to call the parent at the school level if possible. We will send certified communication to the family at the old address to see if it's returned. We also are sensitive to various issues. So we will call the parent if a suspicion arises or is given to us, and we will say, it's been brought to our attention that you may be residing in another town. Can you verify that for us, or can you provide proof of address? And sometimes it goes away, and sometimes parents will say, I moved a while ago, I didn't know. So we will say the child cannot remain there. Most parents are somewhat upset, obviously, as board members are suggesting it's a child, and we get that. But I do want to say we try our very best to uphold the policy. I believe in grace, but I want the board to know that we also don't get this same grace from our surrounding districts. So when other surrounding towns are faced with this same issue, when a child is in, I'm not going to name a town, a neighboring town, and it's found to be living in New Haven through an investigative process, they are removed. The letters will be sent to the parent notifying them that they've confirmed their residency as in New Haven and the child is to cease being enrolled. Our district is notified. The superintendent gets a letter saying that basically the child should be on their way to register with you and is now your educational responsibility. So we do that. We do try to work with families. Typically, parents have not requested hearings. In my time thus far, they will just cop to the notion that I understand and I must go to a new district. I am also very much open to collaborating with the board and other staff members to ensure the policy is taking into consideration families. I did just do a quick dig on some of the data this year, and it looks like we have 28 students who were administratively removed this year because they did not reside in New Haven and were attending a non-interdistrict magnet school. And I'm happy to send that along to Dr. Tracy. We have the breakout of the towns that the children were withdrawn to, and they are our neighboring towns.
Thank
you for this opportunity.
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Tracy? Oh, sorry, I was just gonna.
Tiffany.
Yeah, I just want to encourage us when we bring this back to governance. I know that there's the language specific in the policy that talks about.
Ms. Jackson, hold on. I actually called on Ms. Mason because she had a question.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Ms. Mason?
Thank you. Yes, I fixed that. Sorry about that. The vote that just went through, I have 5 persons taking the vote with 3 yes, 2 no's. Is that correct?
Yes. But that was the call the question.
For the question.
Yep. 3 yeses, no.
We only have 5 board members?
That math doesn't add up.
Yeah, I thought we had 6 board members on.
We do.
We have, hold on, 1, 2, 3 yeses. And 3 no, sorry.
It was 4-2.
Mr. Wilcox was a no, Dr. Joyner was a yes, Dr. Benita was a yes, Dr. Yarborough was a no, Mr. Golson was a yes, and I was a no.
So it was 3-3. So that means we lost the vote.
Yeah,
Right. It wasn't 3-2, it was 3-3.
3-3. Mhm. Are you all set, Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jackson and then Mr. Wilcox.
Yes, I was just going to say that I think that as we're bringing the policy back to governance, we have to make sure that we're looking carefully at the language, because there are some cases where there are some students for a variety of reasons. I don't want to list all of those things here where it's not, straight black and white, as opposed to a child being here. There are some circumstances where children can't remain for specific reasons. So I think that we're going to work with the language. But again, just so that we all understand, there are some circumstances, for instance, where there are children who we are not able to maintain for one reason or another, that we have to be very clear that we're not boxing ourselves into a policy and not giving language in cases where there may be some exceptions to that.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Wilcox and then Dr. Benitez.
Yes, I just was curious as to what the exact motion is, because if I understand it correctly, we're saying we're relaxing this for till the end of this year so that governance and staff can work out the details of this new policy to make sure it works in all these situations that people are talking about. I'm sure there's also lots of implications to this and costs that I'm not aware of in terms of services that children need and so on. But I think now is a good time to move this on so that we can make sure that at least kids in this situation right now are able to attend school while we work out these important details to make this so that after this school year, everybody's clear exactly what's needed. Staff are then able to go forward with a policy that's going to meet their needs, since they're the ones that are going to be responsible for enforcing it. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Dr. Benitez.
I agree with Mr. Wilcox. We need to understand, but one of the things is if people who are enrolling children in New How many different options that we have do not understand how they are enrolled there, how their kids enrolled there, for how long, what's and again, I understand that you provide them with written information, you provide them with orientation, you provide them with all that. But I do understand too that things have changed, and any parent who has children in the school that is familiar with the school usually skips those things. So we need to figure out how we make sure that it's out there when things change, and that every year we make sure that there's a public, not a public event. I don't have to go there, but I have to be able to know if there are changes, and the public should know. I mean, we should all be aware of any changes. And I know we did lose some funding because it was a cycle. I get that. But I get that because I am an educator. Other people might not. So I'm just saying, part of what we need to do is to figure out with you how we can support you in making sure that the public is aware of any changes that happen in the district in terms of enrollment. That's why I need the staff.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Dr. Joyner?
It's really important for us to understand that everything that Abby said, everything that Matt said, and everything that the staff said is accurate, but this is a question of timing. And the short-term solution should weigh in favor of the current children who are affected. And that's what we're trying to do in the motion. The long-term should also address the questions that Markel raised regarding, and this is real, fraud and deception. And in the case of McDowell versus Norwalk Public Schools, some of you may be familiar with that case. A Bridgeport parent enrolled her child in Norwalk Public Schools using a false address. And that's theft of services. And it does go on a lot. It goes on a lot when somebody wants their kid to play on a certain basketball team, when the suburban team is not that good. I know this stuff. Abby knows it, and I know it because I was an athletic director, and that was a big deal with that. So we're dealing with two things in the motion, and it should satisfy both parties, no matter how people might feel about it right now. One, take care of the kids who are in the system now that are affected, because it's not fair to them. Because if they were using the wrong address, then as soon as you find out about it and you can prove fraud, then now we got the McDowell case again. And you can do what you have to do, but you have to prove it. And then the second thing is that we don't ever punish kids for the mistakes of grown folk. Don't ever do that. And I'm going to ask that we pass this motion, which would, one, give some grace and mercy to the kids who are currently affected, and also give us time to create a policy with staff information and input, with them telling us about the various cases in which we have proven fraud. And if we can prove that, then the people have to pay the consequences of it. So I'm going to strongly advocate for us approving this motion so that we can have a short-term and a long-term solution.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Ms. Bonanno, then Dr. Tracy, and Dr. Yarborough.
Yeah, so I just need crystal clear understanding of how we're moving forward. So the current policy says fourth marking period. I understand as a result of tonight's conversation that we are going to relax the fourth marking period. We're still in the third. So what is the date? Because we have, as I understand it, Mr. Middleton, please correct me if I'm wrong, we have two currently that are pending, the same letter being sent, plus 4 that are under investigation, as Dr. Joyner said, talking about making sure that we're proving fraud, et cetera. So do we stop the work on what is currently in the queue, plus what has not been withdrawn from the district? I want to make sure that we are doing as the board requests.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Dr. Joyner.
We can give that kind of information over the next few hours or the next day. But we're putting ourselves in a position where we're deliberating with our own staff. We can't do that.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner.
Madam President, point of order.
Mr. Golton.
I think I made it clear, and maybe I'm not making it clear. I think I said very specifically, any child who has not entered another school system, who is in this queue or could be in the queue until the end of the year, are exempt from this policy. They will be allowed to stay in the school system until the end of the year, if they have not already entered another school system. Is that clear enough for staff? I see head shake.
If that is what the motion is that's on the floor says, and that's what the vote is, absolutely, that is clear.
We've got to do this better the next time, because we should never be in a position of deliberating with our own staff. Never.
Dr. Tracy, thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Golton.
So I agree with you 100%, Dr. Joyner. This came out, the board makes a policy. I'm hired to defend the policy that the board makes. So therefore, it's important that the board is the one who changes that policy and not me. Policy is a policy. So the board changes the policy and I go along with the policy that's changed. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the conversation. So I'm generally in favor of what we're trying to do in the direction we're heading. I appreciate the conversation, the opportunity to clarify. We have done cleaner things as a board in terms of presenting information, having a conversation. We've spoken about so many things that haven't been presented in our board packet and in the paragraph that's in this agenda that that I appreciate the time we've taken to talk through it a little bit. And I appreciate the extra words, Mr. Golson, to try to clarify, specifically what the motion is, because we've said a number of things and it wasn't clear to me what we're voting on and whether or not this affects kids, several years back or just people right now. So I accept not deliberating with the staff and in front of the staff and what that wisdom might be. And I really appreciate the time to really be clear on what we're doing and what the impact is. Generally speaking, I think I would have rather we have a specific conversation about a specific case if we needed to make a decision that way, because at least that would have been clear. And I do support what we're trying to do with our students in this district and trying to educate them and help them finish the year out. So I do support the direction we're moving. Thank you, President Rivera.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Mr. Golson?
Thank you, Madam President. I understand Mr. Yarborough's, wait a minute, maybe I should let the recording secretary.
Ms. Mason, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question regarding the motion. I noticed that Mr. Golson, to you, President, he made the motion, but then shortly he made clarification. Now I am not clear at this point what the whole motion is.
Mr. Golson?
I made a motion and some folks asked for clarification. So I clarified what the motion was going to do. I did not change the motion. Anyone can go back at the record and see exactly what the clarification was. If anyone here, the president or anyone else thinks that I need to reframe the motion with that clarification, I'm more than happy to do it. But I think it's clear from the discussion here what the motion was supposed to, what it's supposed to do. According to the staff, they're clear now. But if someone thinks I need to redo the motion to add that clarification, I'm fine with that.
Attorney Alexiadis probably thinks you do. Attorney Alexiadis?
I think that the recording secretary needs to know what the words of the motion are, and I think she was expressing her concern.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
To make it a matter of record. And so I think that and I also think it's good practice to restate the words of a motion immediately prior to a vote, so everyone knows what they're voting on. That's all. It's not practical to go back and listen to the videotape. Right.
No. Wait a minute now. Most legislative bodies, first of all, she didn't say she didn't know what the motion was. She wanted to know if the motion changed through that clarification. And I told her it did not. Now, most legislative bodies use their legislative debate if there's any questions about what their motions meant or who it affected and so on. But I'm willing, but I'm willing intention. But I am more than willing to reframe the motion if my fellow board members thinks we need to do that.
Do that, Mr. Golson.
Okay. Madam President, do I have the floor to do that? Okay. I'm going to reframe the original motion I made, and I guess it should be seconded by the original person. I don't know if is this a motion? Am I now moving to amend the motion that I made?
No, just restating your motion.
Okay. I'm going to restate the motion with the clarification. The motion is to allow any student who is currently enrolled in the system and has not enrolled in another system to be exempt from the residency requirements until till the end of the year. Is that clear? Does that make it clear for everyone?
And I second the motion.
Madam Recording Secretary, did you get that?
Thank you. Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, and I just wanted to make one point in reference to Mr. Yarborough's comments. I would have loved to had just had this regarding one individual, because one individual actually contacted me about this. But the staff was concerned about only doing one individual, only talking about one individual, because there may be other people affected who would want the same kind of consideration. And that's why we're talking as opposed to one family.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on that item. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes, and I'll explain my vote briefly. It is better to try to develop an overarching principle to cover as many cases as possible than to have to deal with every individual case that pops up. And I applaud the board for doing this. And I also applaud the staff for giving us information that would help us deal with the other stuff that has to go on with governance and staff. So I'm voting yes.
thank you. Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
My vote is going to be much more simpler. Yes.
I am a yes as well, and so that motion passes.
Dr. Benitez, you call her?
Yes,
Oh, Dr. Benitez, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, thank you.
this is a long meeting.
Yeah, longer than it was supposed to be. I think we have the final item, which is the finance and operations. Mr. Wilcox.
All right, thank you. I will be, please let me know if anything needs to be moved separate. I do know that one item needs to be
Yes.
moved separate. I will just,
Agreement number one.
yes, thank you. So we'll do that. I just also wanted to provide a brief explanation, the approval for the grant applications, just as a reminder. Head Start requires that the governing body approves their applications before they go to Head Start. So that's what that is, which is not a typical thing that's on our things. But if you notice, when we're doing this, it's always related to Head Start. So I'm gonna make a motion. The first one is to move one item separately, and that is I move that we approve the agreement listed as agreement number 1 with Casa Antonio Incorporated.
Second. Second.
Thank you. And then for discussion, I would just say that I will be recusing myself from that vote. My husband is the executive director of Casa Antonio, so I will not be voting on that. And seeing no further discussion, we'll take a vote on that item. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes,
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
and I am recused, but the item passes.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and make the another motion here, and that is I move that we approve the 2 grant approval for grant applications, the 7 remaining agreements, the 1 contract, and the 2 purchase orders as listed on the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on the remaining F&O items. Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox.
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
yes,
and I am a yes as well, and so that item passes. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
Second,
Second,
bye.
Okay,
We got to vote first, Reverend.
Oh, okay. I said bye before. It's a preemptive.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes,
Dr. Yarborough,
yes.
Mr. Golson,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Good night, everyone, after a short meeting.
Bye, Liz.
Nice.